Hey, good evening, everybody. Got quite a treat for you tonight. It's the three-headed monster. I'm here to introduce the guys who know what the hell they're talking about. So tonight we got Pig Vig with us. What's going on, man?
What's going on, guys? Thank you. Welcome for having me. I think this is the second time now. So I think if we do this 3 times, we're pretty much dating. That's all I got to
say. Just don't get insecure, all right?
All right.
I just realized if I turn my hat around, we match, even though we're like different teams.
I'm sure it's a little different up front.
The front's different. That's right.
I like that, though. I like.
Thanks for being here, man. Always enjoy. We'll talk about this at the end, but most of you know Pig's got awesome content on Twitter. Great capper, so happy to have you here tonight, man.
My honor.
And then back again for more punishment, JJ from BetCrushers. How are you doing, man?
I'm taking a licking and keep on ticking.
Dude, you've been crushing again lately here.
Get back on track. Week and a half, I was out of town and just whatever. Hey, at least the bad times happen.
Just gets back from vacation and goes 3-0. Yeah, just not that good.
I do best when I'm under duress from the day job. That's just whooping my ass, and then I must channel some sort of inner thing for the handicap. No, I'm kidding. It's up and down. You guys know that.
Yeah, we do know that. So, all right. So, hey, we are going to be going through 5 games. These are games for tomorrow, by the way. So there are some games that haven't started yet tonight. Do not run out and bet those because that's not what we're talking about here. So these are games for Wednesday, May 25th. So we are going to start off, if I can get my mouse back here, with the Milwaukee Brewers and the San Diego Padres, and JJ is going to kick us off on this one. What are you thinking on this one, man?
I like this, and I kind of have a little sour taste in my mouth. We'll get to that, but in terms of these pitchers, these are interesting to me. Darvish is a little tough for me to gauge. You kind of look at the numbers, you look at the underlying numbers, and you're talking about a pretty solid, 4 xFIP, 4 Sierra, right in that range. But you're looking at a guy whose strikeouts are down, swinging strike rate is down. He's a world beater for a couple of weeks, and you're talking like 6 innings, 1 run type of work. Then he's hit bumpier roads. You go to Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and then obviously San Francisco's got a pretty good team there. That was the worst outing of the bunch for Darvish by far. But, I really also have a hard time pinpointing which games the Brewers are going to put runs on the board. I was fortunate to win that 1-0 game a couple of Mondays ago. I think they scored on a pass ball. That was the only run of the game. And I thought they would be a little better, while having good on the pitching end of things. So I got to admit, Brewers kind of catch me with my pants down sometimes, but facing a righty really helps their cause. They're about 20% better against righties than lefties. So that's something significant. Their last 14-day numbers are good. Last week, a little less so, but still pretty solid. But if you're interested, one thing to note is if you're interested in the Milwaukee full game side or something, you're looking at a Padres total. Keep an eye on, whether Hader's going to be in there. He's been on bereavement leave for the last couple of days. So that's something to keep a note, because not that the Brewers bullpen is bad by any means, but they haven't been quite as sharp and they don't have that backhand hammer. So that's something to think about. On the other side, you've got Aaron Ashby. He's the one who burned me in Atlanta while I was on vacation. Naturally, that was his worst outing of the season when I decided to back Ashby and Milwaukee. So that was a little bit of a bummer. He redeemed himself last time out in Miami. He's done a lot of bulk work. He's gotten a few starts, but he's done mostly bulk work. But what's killing Ashby are all the walks. We're talking about the 3 starts that he's made. He's given out either 4 or 5 free passes. So that's troublesome, especially against a lineup that the Padres have. Plays right into the hands of a Padres lineup that has been pretty damn good against lefties. Machado, Hosmer, Kim, Profar have all been very productive against lefties this year. Now, they only slugged .350 this past week, but, they had tough time scoring on, Carlos Rodon, very tough lefty on Saturday, but took care of business against Alex Wood the next day. He's a higher caliber southpaw than I think that Ashby is at this point. So I made the Padres about a tick above 2 runs in the first 5 inning line here. though I think I was a little more conservative with the strength of their splits against lefties, and I didn't penalize Ashby as much as I really could have for being a walk-heavy type of guy and going against a good lineup. So I definitely have a position. It's just a half-unit position that I made tonight. It's Padres first 5. I loved the over 1.5 for -130. I thought that was a pretty good price for what you're getting there. Only needing to put up a couple runs. I think the numbers line up quite well for him. It was -150 at Bovada, so I thought 130 was good at DraftKings.
Great.
All right. I like what I'm hearing there. Just to kind of follow that up there, just in case some of the guys or some of the viewers, out there that don't know, I'm more of a first 5 specialist, if you say. So I kind of focus my attention there. And when I break down the first 5 here, I kind of have a little system. Everybody has their own, of course. I thought it was a little funny name today. So I do a little 6-pack with the chaser is the name of my system there.
You really get after it.
Yeah. So the core 6 that I kind of focus on is walks through 9, home runs through 9, BAPIP, XFIP, and Sierra. And then with the 6th is the splits. I do pay attention to the handedness, whether it be home, away, left-handed, right-handed. And then the 6th, the 7th, I guess I should say the chaser, which I don't hold too much weight in, but I still like to look at it, is the hard hit percentage. I just see that as very volatile. So it's hard sometimes to just say, hey, this guy is getting hard hit at 40-something%. Kind of got to really take into account the field, the lineup that they're against, kind of so and so forth there. So just kind of wanted to throw that out there to kind of show you where I'm looking and how I'm coming to my conclusion there. So if you break down both teams there, first 5 team average there, we got San Diego checking in 11th at 2.48 runs through the first 5 innings. Milwaukee a little behind them there at 16th, 2.36. What I really like is the recent trends there. San Diego in their own ballpark over the last 3 is averaging 3.33 runs per 5. So they're really starting to kind of swing the bats.
Like that.
And then on the other side, which kind of shocked me as well, because I think JJ just touched on it, Milwaukee over the last 3 is averaging 3 runs per 5 innings. So that kind of shocked me there. Where I did the line in the sand for each was the home and road split. And that's kind of what JJ was touching on. On the road, Milwaukee just struggling more so than at home. On the road, they're averaging a 1.68 runs through 5 innings. So just not scratching enough there. Then when I throw the pitchers in there, he really did kind of touch on it. You got who's just so up and down. It's kind of hard to know what Darvish you're getting. So you got to take that into account when you're backing the Padres and use on the bump. Where I'm focusing on here, once again, plays right back into the 6-pack, is the splits and his home splits. And that's what I'm really banking on for him here to work out for him. At home, he's holding batters to a $145 average, a 192 on base, and a 205 WOBA. That's nasty. If you want to look into some of the percentile or some of the categories, this is just on the year. Then I'll get into the home. So on the year, he's 21st in the league in balls per 9 or walks through 9 at 2.15, 27th in the league at 0.78 home runs through 9. And then we flick on over to the home side of things, and those numbers get even better. The walks fall on down to 1.37 in his own ballpark through 9, and the home runs stay right pretty much on the same 0.92 home runs through 9. So he really does seem to kind of excel since he's been at Petco more than anything. On the other side of things, JJ touched on Aaron Ashby, and he kind of highlighted where I'm going. And it's the first thing I mentioned as part of my 6-pack, the walks through 9s. On the year, 5.4 walks through 9 and a 290 BAPIP. So just not really fooling anybody right now. The contact is there. Now, I will give it to him. The home run to fly ball is under control, and the home run through 9 is under control. There's only 0.64 there. But on the road, he definitely struggled. I mean, short sample size here. Of course, we're only talking 21 innings pitched, but the ERA more than quadruples, but he has a 0 ERA at home. So it's tough to really say that, but 4.71 ERA. He's allowed 18 hits, and then just to double dip on it, 13 walks on the road. Now, if we look over the month of May, San Diego versus lefties, On the year, versus lefties, they're batting 247, 417 slug, and a 751 OPS. And then if we just break down May, San Diego now does have some problems there in the WRC category, but Milwaukee goes right with them. So 4th worst in WRC. On the other side of things, Milwaukee is the 5th best in WRC in May. So that's definitely something to kind of hold on to there. Now, if we look at San Diego in runs scored, they're 22nd in May. Milwaukee 5th in May. So it's definitely some interesting splits there. You would say the pitching matchup favors you. You could say some of the bats favor Milwaukee. But where I just finally gave the edge to the Padres is their splits versus lefties. I think that's going to give them the edge. And I am backing, and it's official, if you want to call it that, first 5 Padres on the money line.
On the money line, okay. Awesome. Well, I mean, you guys have hardly shared any information, so I feel like I'm really going to have to fill in a lot of gaps here, but I'll do my best.
Save us.
Yeah. No, so, I mean, what I like is, I think I have a couple things that are maybe slightly different, but really all the stuff that you guys are sharing is in line with kind of where I would go on this game too. This isn't, as statistically driven, but JJ, you mentioned this. I think Ashby, it's really interesting when he starts versus coming out of the pen. That was one of the things that caught my eye when I was looking through this. So he has like his first start, he had a 2.92 xFIP, but then 5.89, 4.12, 7.03, and then he did have one good game against Miami where he didn't give up any hits in 4 innings. So we could go through all those same. I look at a lot of those same numbers you guys were talking about with walks and strikeouts or walks especially, and the BABIP and all that kind of stuff, and it's just not good when Ashby starts. And so we'll see if that continues or not, but I don't think like it's a good spot for him. And I think his overall numbers are a little bit misleading even because he tends to do better when he comes out of the pen. And so I don't think it's a good pitching matchup for Milwaukee in this one.
And some of that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think some of that might have to do with the fact that he's getting smacked a lot harder the second time through the lineups. So
that makes sense,
I think,
right?
Yeah, I think the slugging is like an extra 140 points or something higher the second time through. The average is low, but when they connect, they connect. That's when he's giving up the hard contact, the doubles.
That's interesting. And it makes a ton of sense, right? Like a reliever doesn't have to see people the second time through usually. So
correct.
I generally don't trust Darvish, but a lot of the same things Pig was talking about are things that I would rely on a little bit here, that he's been better at home this year, even though it's still not absolutely amazing. But I think there is an advantage there for San Diego in terms of the pitching. I would agree with that, and a lot has been shared, so I won't go over it again. In terms of the bats, Milwaukee probably has a little bit of an advantage, but JJ and I talked about this on the last stream. Runs isn't necessarily the best thing to look at, but I think it's a little bit of the home away scoring that I look at in the NBA, that I like to at least see what the run production looks like, even though underlying numbers are incredibly important in baseball. But the Padres, both of these teams, way worse in this situation. The Padres 3.39 runs a game at home versus 5.29 away. So almost 2 runs different in Milwaukee, 5.3 per game at home and 4.05 away. So they're 1.3 different. So all that said, I actually am on the same side here. I like both of the bets that you guys gave. I had written down Padres first 5 money line on this one. I had also written down, and I haven't bet anything, full disclosure, yet. I had just written down what I'm looking at. But I had also written down the under, but then it's 7.5. I'm not that interested. I think it would need to at least be 8 again, because I don't trust Ashby either. So that feels iffy to me. So anyway, I'm definitely with you guys that I think the Padres are the side, and I think staying in the first 5 is smart in this game as well. So, all right. Anything else on that one that came up for you guys?
Nothing. I just kind of really wanted to highlight the Padres batting versus lefties. I think that's kind of what's carrying them right now. Of course, I'm a Dodger fan, so maybe some people are going to see some bias there, but I just think they've played kind of a little outside of their shoes. And when you want to back them is when they have the lefty on the mound, and then not so. I mean, hence why I backed Milwaukee tonight with the righty on the bump. whether it's Corbin Burns or not. Just a different kind of ball game there. And it just really seems to be poking through kind of those numbers I was showing you over the last 3 weeks. They're top 5 hitting versus lefties, bottom 5 versus righties. I mean, it's just
man, that is significant for sure. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's go on to the next game here. We got the Phillies at the Braves, and Pig's going to kick us off for this one.
All right, let's jump into it. So same angle here, first 5, of course, there. Looking at the F5 records, you got Philly 21-21 on the year, Atlanta 20-22. Now, if you look at the home and road splits, Philly on the run line is 11-7 on the road, while Atlanta is 7-5 in their own building. And me being an F5 guy, I do sometimes lean to those run lines. Was the price? I think the price is still looking about -140 for Atlanta. If that's someone can check that, that'd be great.
On the first 5 is -140. Yep, that's
okay,
right.
Perfect. So, so getting into that, Philly in the first 5 innings averages 2.64 runs to Atlanta's 2.36, and over the last 3, the bats have definitely woken up to where I'd even go past the last 3 for Atlanta, but we'll stick with Philadelphia right now. Philly over the last 3 is averaging 3.67 runs through 5 innings. Atlanta is averaging 1. And I think that even goes further. Of course, the 1 is only the last 3, but I want to say they're averaging less than 2 over the last 2 weeks. If you look at the home and road splits, they kind of back that up. Atlanta in their own building averages 2.91, which is an uptick over their season average, but Philly comes right over again on top of them on the road, 3.33 runs per 5. When we really break down the pitching matchup, Ranger, Suarez, and Charlie Morton, I'll start off with Ranger. On the year, 3.43 walks through 9, 1.14 home run through 9, and a 3.08 BABIP. On the road, though, is where this guy shines. So I do tend to like Ranger tomorrow there. Has a 2.5 ERA on the roads. Once again, small sample size, but 18 innings pitched, 74 total batters, and only allowed 15 hits in that time. Also on the road, those walks through 9, the home runs, everything falls. You got walks through 9 falls to 3 even. Home runs through 9 falls to 1 even. And he has 23 Ks on the road this season, a 23% K rate on the road this season compared to a 16 in his own ballpark. So definitely likes that road cooking for some reason there. On the other side, Charlie Morton, I kind of view Charlie, at least in this season, kind of the same as I view you. You just don't really understand or know what you're going to get. In the beginning of the season, it was bad, Uncle Charlie. He did seem to kind of turn the corner, I'd say, in his last 2-3 starts. He's turned in a 2 of 3 quality starts there. But if you still look at the average on the year, we got a 4.28 walks through 9 ratio. Now he does hold the home runs down, a 0.9 home run through 9, but the BABIP is 307. The K rate has even seen a little jump at home, 27%. So I like that on my side. But if we really focus and zoom in on the home side, that's where Charlie is going to give you his best ball. 18 innings pitched, 2.8 ERA, and a 227 BABIP in his own park, a 161 average, and a 1.02 whip in his last 3 starts. And that's really what I'm focusing on because, I think that's kind of really how you have to do it with these pitchers. 16 1/3 innings pitched, 11 hits, 4 runs, and 19 strikeouts. And the reason why I highlight the 19 strikeouts, he had 18 Ks in his first 5 starts. So he's really significantly picked up the K ball. I think that has to do with just the older body, older guy, older Charlie. It took him a few starts to get into rotation with the no spring training, I'm sure. I mean, this guy almost retired 2 seasons ago. So I think you always kind of got to factor that in. And the last thing I'll kind of finish up with, in May, Atlanta is 27th in weighted runs calculated plus. So that kind of highlights back to what I was saying, 1 run per 5 of the last 3. So that's a little worrisome. Philly is 13th in that time in weighted runs calculated plus and tied for second in team BABIP at 311. So definitely you have some kind of Jekyll and Hyde batting there. Philly is hot. Atlanta, not so much right now. Still, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and back Charlie Morton in his own ballpark. The price is pretty much right at my limit. I would not take it above 135, 140. If it gets anything past that, I would pass, and I would not take the run line just because of their lack of offense right now.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, man. JJ, what do you got for this one?
I agree with Pig there about, hesitating to go onto the run line and not wanting to overpay, because you do have to worry about Atlanta and their offense. But yeah, I think this one was interesting to me, because of, a lot of what Pig had to say. And you think that how Atlanta is basically, they have a strong bias towards left-handed pitchers. And, Atlanta has that strong bias. Suarez has been good at times, kind of like the Morton thing, but he also struggled against Texas and Colorado. But the similarity between those two teams and Atlanta, both of them are lopsided against lefties as well. You actually have a Rockies team that's about 30% better against lefties than righties. So, those three teams kind of fit that mold where you have a strong 15, 16, 18, or even 30% skew towards lefties. So you have to almost evaluate Suarez, whether, he has that, ability to fend off Atlanta. But, in terms of Philly, they hit both sides of the ball well. Lefties much better, but they're not going against one. They're still tough against righties. But the thing that I think I'm not really sure about, and I haven't bet this game, but I like Pig's confidence, so I might, end up following that in the morning after I look over this a little more. But Phillies last week, they ran into two pretty good staffs in the Padres and the Dodgers. I think they scored 3 runs against the Padres, and all 3 of those were against Snell. So, they had a tough time. Dodgers obviously have a fantastic team and kind of held them in check. They slashed 214, 277, 310 last week. I think that is, helping to drag down their numbers. So I'm curious to see if they hit a little bit of a bounce back. But in terms of Morton, you're right. Took a while to get on track. I think it was the Aaron Ashby game where he stifled Milwaukee and Ashby blew up, against Atlanta. So I was on the wrong side there, but that seemed to have been the start that really turned things around. Found his fastball. Fastball's been good the last 3 games. But what really got him in Miami, he got pecked away at 7 hits. Nothing too crazy. I think it was a homer in the 6th, but he got into the 6th. He lost touch with his secondary pitches. So it's about how sharp he is with the secondary pitches. So, Pig has a really good point. He stumbled last time out. The really only tough time he had was in that 6th inning. So keeping it to the first 5 makes a ton of sense. I don't have a strong feeling on the total, but yeah, I think Braves are the side, but you don't want to overpay. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because so I just looked at that outing and I had that written down too. So he gave up 3 runs. I was like, 2 of those came in the 6th. So just for the F5 batters out there. So just
there you go. Yep. Perfect.
I'm going to ask you guys this question because I have no idea the answer to this, to be totally honest, that Michael just asked in the comments. He said, I've always worried about the Phillies against the division. Any stats that would suggest that's a legit concern versus Morton and company? They seem to struggle most with the fish. Any thoughts on that in terms of divisional games? To be honest, it's not something I really look at very much. So,
well, you give a good point. I guess you could look at, say, team by team splits, or even in this case, player splits or player, tendencies towards the particular starter. Like I think you do that a lot, Tasty. You're looking at.
I do have some of that.
Yeah. So I think that's a way to do it. I don't really dig too deep into that. That's a great question, but Pig probably has it.
Not to dig too deep just into this season. So in the East, Philadelphia is 5-9 straight up versus the East there. And you got Atlanta checking in at 6-8. So not really too much to depend on there. That's pretty tough. Looks like they're both pretty much eating outside of division right now. Looks like Philly's feasting on the West pretty much, which is sad to say for my teams. They just swept us, but there's not really too strong a trend right there to just say, and that's just this season. I'm sorry, not too in depth there, but this season 5-9, so not something I would just hang my hat on there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I imagine you could probably go team by starter, but it's tough because this year
I'd punch that in statmuse.com is what I would do if I was.
I don't know who. Great.
I don't know who asked that, but I would go punch in StatMuse and I would punch in Philadelphia. You could do ATS or straight up versus National League East, and you could pick the date, the year, whatever you want, and it will tell you. So just a tip.
Pig's giving away all his secrets here. I tell you what,
yes.
I mean, it's open book. I love it. No, it's good, man. It's a great site.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm going to just throw in a few more things. A lot of it leans the way that you guys have already talked about, which isn't surprising. I mean, the reality is when we're looking at these stats, it's not going to be surprising if we lean the same way on a lot of these games, right? But so with Suarez, one of the things for me is the splits there, where against right-handed batters, he's significantly worse this year. So a 443 xFIP versus 240, an 18% K rate versus 22.9, 10.1 walk rate versus 2.9. So it's just significantly different, righties and lefties.
Yo, 338. Wow, I did not. I glossed over myself. That's
So in Atlanta, at least, I mean, obviously lineups aren't confirmed, but like what Roto Grinders has right now is that Atlanta will have 7 righties and 1 switch hitter, only 1 lefty. So you've got potentially 8 out of the 9 batters hitting right-handed against Suarez, which is his weaker side. So I think that's a significant thing. Also, one of the things I look at is the pitcher versus the current roster that they're going against. So it's not just if they were on that team, but whenever they've pitched against them. And Suarez only has 30 plate appearances, which I told JJ is like my cutoff for even really looking at it, because it's still not much. So don't put too much stock in it. But 577 FIP and 333 WOBA against the current roster. So again, not great for Suarez. On the Morton side, I think what Pig said about recent starts is important even to me, and I hadn't actually looked at that because like versus lefties this year, significantly worse. So, but still, like the K rate is okay. It's the walks, 14.5% walk rate against left-handed batters this year for Morton. And Philadelphia likely to have 3 lefties and 1 switch hitter, so 4 that could hit from the left side of the plate, which is pretty decent. So that's one of the things that gives me a little bit of pause, but I think the recent game stuff is good. And then Morton versus the current Phillies roster, this is 154 plate appearances, so it's a lot more. 351 FIP and 314 WOBA, so a little bit better, at least like decent, basically, you know. So I definitely lean to Atlanta here. The things that give me some pause are things that have already been said, and that's that Atlanta has not been hot offensively lately, and Philadelphia kind of has. And so I do tend to put a little bit of credence into how things have been going over the last 5 to 7 games, and that worries me a little bit for the Braves. However, the Braves offense has been better at home. And so it's a good thing that they're at home here. The Phillies have been better on the road, though. So I got to be honest about that and balance that out. So for me, I don't mind getting to the Phillies bullpen. So I actually look at Atlanta full game here, and I don't like paying big juice. So I'll probably go Atlanta -1 is what I'll look to do.
And then I guess I just get so excited every time I come on the stream. I forget some of my stats there, but just another little inkling to throw at you guys. Ranger Suarez, so first time through the lineup, a 281 average against, 422 slug and 350 WOBA. Second time through the lineup, 295 average, 410 slug. So guy just doesn't get better from start to finish. That's why I'm singling in on the F5. Now, I don't hate your play on full game because we all know the Phillies bullpen is not something you want to depend on. I guess I'm just trying to maybe cut out some of those at bats as well from the Philly offense, and maybe hopefully Charlie can just focus in there, really zone in on those 5 and kind of get after Ranger.
Understandable. I'll just hope we both win. You know,
that's fine. Let's do it.
We'll go first 5 and full game both.
And to Tasty's point, the Atlanta bullpen has been very sharp, especially the last couple of weeks. They have been good.
All right. Awesome. Well, pretty much the same directions there with things, and hopefully lots of good info for people to lean on. All right, next up, we're going to go to Oakland at Seattle, and Pig's going to kick us off on this one again.
All right. So looking at this one here, same kind of thing. You guys know, you guys heard the 6-pack there, or what I kind of like to focus on. Now, I will switch. I'm not backing a side here. I am backing the total. I'm sorry. Once again, first 5 lines haven't been released yet. I think the full game is 7.5, if I'm not mistaken. So I would have to assume 3.5. Very worst 3 for first 5.
Is it over or under?
under.
Under 3.5 is plus 116 on FanDuel right now.
Oh, plus money. Give it to me, please, and thank you. Under 3.5 first 5 innings is where I'm focused here. So I'm really kind of focusing in on the lack of offense for both teams. Now, Seattle has woken up a little bit, so we'll get into that. But Oakland, there's just no way to say it. It's tough over there. They traded away a lot of their talent this postseason. It's tough for them to come by many runs on the year. Through 5 innings, they're averaging 1.86 runs through 5. Over the last 3, 1 even. On the other side of things, Seattle, 2.26 runs through 5. Now, over the last 3, they've seen an uptick. The bats have woken up this month, so you're seeing 4 runs scored through 5 innings. But where I expect that's going to get negated is in my man, Mr. Paul Blackburn. JJ can attest to this. I almost faded him last week, and he talked me out of it. He did. I give him his credit. I was going to ride with Thor and the Angels there against Blackburn. And what I saw really in that start doubled down he's had back-to-back starts versus the Halos, who I would probably put right now top offense, if not top 5, top 3, however you want to rank them in baseball right now. Most exciting team to watch offensively, we'll say that. But back-to-back outings versus the Halos, he's gone 11 1/3. He's allowed 11 hits, 3 runs, and has 8 Ks versus Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, Walsh. I'll keep going on. I mean, you're talking about a lineup that's far superior to Seattle, even though they've seen an uptick in the offense lately. So if we look into May, just kind of clicking back to total, not to bounce around too much, but in May overall, you got Oakland checking in 29th in weighted runs calculated plus. Seattle, they've seen an uptick. On the year, they were in the mid-20s. In this month, they've kicked on up to 17. So that's where I really kind of wanted to say is, yes, they've kicked it up, but they're still 17. That's still not even top half of the league in some regards. In May, Oakland scored 65 runs, which ranks 27th in that span. Seattle, 76 runs, which ranked 25th in that span. And that's really where I want to focus. Yes, the WRC may be higher, but the runs still really aren't coming across the plate, whether they're calculated to, whether they should or not, basically. Going back to Paul, F5 on the year, 6-0-1 record. You have to throw that out there. I mean, I hate to go off record and ERA too much because those can definitely be skewed by teams and who you're playing. But on the year, 1.49 walk through 9 ratio, a 0.21 home run through 9. Now that may have to do a little bit with playing in that home ballpark, in the pitcher's ballpark there, but still 0.21 is nothing to scoff at. Then we look at his what really kind of backs up for me is the xFIP of a 2.88. So really backing up that if you take everybody else out of the play, they're still not hitting the ball anywhere. So I still like that. On the other side of things, Robbie Ray. I still like Robbie this year. I kind of say that and I hesitate because I think a lot of people expect Cy Young, Robbie Ray from the Toronto Blue Jays. And I just don't think you're ever going to see that Robbie Ray. Now, is he going to just fall off into the abyss? No, of course not. He's a solid pitcher, solid pitch mix. But I think you have to kind of tamper your expectations there with Robbie. On the year through 54 innings pitched, he's allowed 29 earned runs. So that is a little concerning to me. He does have a 3.29 walk through 9 ratio and a 1.32 home run through 9. So that is a little bit concerning to me. But then I just keep flicking back to the Oakland bats. So if the Oakland's not going to score, and then you have Mr. Blackburn and Seattle's offense only averaging 2.26 runs on their own, I am taking the first 5 total under 3.5. And I think I just heard it was plus money. I love hearing that.
JJ, fight him.
No, I can't do it. I mean, both of these pitchers are pretty quality. I never would have thought to grab some pretty good plus money there on that under 3.5. I'm looking at my scratches here. It's really hard to disagree with that. I'm with you. I still have respect for Robbie Ray. Last season was an anomaly, I think, but you've still got a guy who has dramatically changed from being a big walk type of guy to go along with Ks. His Ks are down, but, he still is holding the walk rate in pretty decent shape. The only problem I do have with him is he gives up fly balls, still giving up a little bit on the hard contact end of thing, which is fine. You can have a 40% hard hit rate, 43% hard hit rate when you're, mowing down 30-some% of the opponents. But, still they're going against an Oakland lineup, which, granted they do have a little skew towards the lefties, but still nothing to be majorly concerned about. And again, I'm big on Blackburn. Seattle certainly has a good offense, an improved offense over last year. But Blackburn has been very solid, pretty efficient too, I would say. So definitely where you want to keep that first five. I think, Shady's bringing up a good point. Bullpen being a concern, if you will. And that's probably where a full game over could go, or a full game under could go to die, really.
Yeah, and that full game is only 7.5 some places, but 7 if you want a good number on it. So
takes four to beat you in that first 5. I like that. Right. I like it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even hate it at 3. It's just plus money and you get the hook. And then just to kind of piggyback off what JJ said there, I wouldn't even hate A's plus a half run in the first 5 just because of how strong Paul is. But because of Robbie's kind of up and downness, but with the bats, I still feel that the top play is the under 3.5 runs.
Yeah, so I'm going to go similar. And I actually just went and bet that under because I liked the under for first 5, but hadn't even looked at the line. So 3.5 plus money, I'm like, okay, that's really good. But so for me, one thing with Blackburn, you guys have talked about how good he's been this year. He has been better away as well. 242 xFIP compared to 364, 21.8% K rate versus 19, 4 versus 4.8 based on balls, 0.95 whip versus 1.06. So just all the stats are lining up where he's even better away from home than he is at home. So that's something that I like in this one. And then the same thing that you guys already said about Ray, like solid high K rate. Oakland's not the worst in the league in terms of Ks, but I think Ks per game, they're just barely in that top third, basically, of teams. So they do strike out some, and they don't put up a lot of runs. We've talked about that, right? Now in their last 7, they have scored 6, 5, 4, 4 in 4 out of those 7 games. So they have scored a little bit more. But I just still don't think it's a good offense against a good pitcher. So the other thing that I bring up is versus the current roster. Can't say much for Blackburn as he's only had 20 plate appearances against, but it is good. It's a 290 WOBA and a 2.0 FIP. So it's only 20, but it's good enough. I just have to say it. And on the Rays side, 39 plate appearances, 2.01 FIP, 229 WOBA. So even better. In a very small sample size. Again, I'm not going to put too much on it, but it also isn't a red flag for me, basically, is just what I would say about that. So I definitely do like that first 5 under that I had under for this game written down, but after talking, I definitely like the first 5 better. And I actually do like Seattle for the full game. However, the price is too much for me. I think it was.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt. And if offshore, do you have capabilities to look at that? What would first 5 over under 4 be juiced to for that same? Just curious. If you're telling me it's gonna take me 5 runs and it's less than 130,
let me look it up here.
I'm so sorry. I just kind of clicked in my brain.
No, you're fine. Honestly, this is one of the things I loved doing the NBA stream too, is when you talk through things, you're like, hey, what about this bet?
I love 3.5 and plus money. Don't get me wrong. I'm not steering away from that. But if you can even maybe ladder it even for not even that bad of a price.
Offshore, what I've got is under 4 at minus 130. Now that's just Bovada. So
I'd say if you're that's the side you're leaning, I would put the unit on 3.5 and maybe a half on that 4. I would go opposite than stacking the ladder just because of the price. And I personally still would always lean that, but I would do a unit on plus money and a half on that minus 130. Just in case they somehow scratch a 4th run in there, you get a little buyback. I don't see it happening by any means, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad against the ladder there.
Yeah. So yeah, it would be nice if it was like 115 or something. But,
Yeah, that's the only thing that kind of stops me. That's why I said a half unit, because I was like, I hate
That's
that
the
130.
130
That
tough.
130 is pretty tough.
Yeah.
But you get the push on your side. I mean, you get that fourth run. I mean, yeah, you're talking 5 runs to beat you, but value, I'd still 3.5 plus money. There's no reason to get off of it. There's no reason to buck it.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to stick with that too. Minus 154 on the full game is too much for me, even though I do like Seattle here for the full game. But I don't want to pay that price. So I'm not going to.
I would agree full game. The A's offense is just not enough for me to depend on full game.
For sure. For sure. All right. Well, we're good on that one. We're going to move on to the Red Sox and White Sox. And I'm going to kick this one off. And then you guys can hit me with all of your stuff. So in this one, we got Hill versus Giolito. Hill just really bad versus righties in terms of splits. 4.98 xFIP versus 240. 14.7 K rate versus 33.3 versus lefties. 6.9 walk rate, so not terrible. 141 whip. And the White Sox, again, according to Roto Grinders right now, 7 righties and 2 switch hitters hitting. So that potentially is 9 guys hitting from 9 guys hitting from the right side of the plate, which Rich Hill has not been good with. Also versus this current roster, only 44 plate appearances. So again, it's not a massive sample size, but 766 FIP and 362 WOBA for Rich Hill against current roster. On the White Sox side, Giolito relatively strong versus both sides. Really good versus lefties. Right now, a 40% K rate versus lefties, which is, fairly solid when it comes to the strikeouts. Although it is 13.3 walk rate to lefties as well, where it's only 4.5 to righties. But he's been solid with a 234 xFIP to lefties and a 291 xFIP to righties. Boston right now looking to put out a pretty balanced lineup, 4 lefties, 5 righties. And so, not much to see there other than Giolito, I think, definitely having the pitching advantage in this matchup versus Boston's current roster. This is the red flag for me, though. Like, I looked up those numbers and I'm like, oh, Giolito all day. And maybe it is. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say, but only 46 plate appearances versus Boston's current roster, but 698 FIP and 402 WOBA. Like, those are not good numbers, even though it's a small sample size. The other thing for me is in the last 7 games, Boston has put up 8, 6, 7, 12, 5, 4, and 6 runs. So their offense has been producing over the last 7 games. And like I said, I do tend to weight that some, where the White Sox have had 3, 5, 5, 7, 2, 3, and 1. So they've had a couple strong games, but 3 twice, 2 and a 1. So their offense just hasn't been producing in the same way. Let's see. That was the main stuff I'd hear. So do you guys have the line? I can get it here too. Yeah. So
minus 175 for the White Sox. Over under it's at 8.
Yeah. So it's definitely. So I think for me here, I would still look toward the White Sox for the first 5, though it is at minus 144, because I do think the pitching matchup is very much skewed, especially in this instance, to Giolito over Hill here. And even though the Red Sox offense has been a lot hotter than the White Sox, I'm going to trust the difference in the pitching matchup. However, for the full game, I actually lined this closer to a pick. And so I am potentially interested in the Red Sox at plus 155 for the full game. It's just hard for me to look at the numbers on Rich Hill and think that I'm going to bet it, though. So I haven't done that yet, and not sure I will. And then over-under, I had this at an 8.4 for the game, and it's over-under 8. So a little bit of a look at the over potentially. I would also maybe look at the White Sox team total over for the first 5 because of that matchup with him. I like that smile from Pig. So Pig, let's go to you next on this. We're going to have Jason close us out on the next one. So
let's get into it. I loved where you finished up there. In fact, I really don't have anything to disagree with you on. I mean, I have nothing. I'm split here, so I'll definitely leave it up to you guys to kind of help me because I respect both your opinions. I like where you went there. To me, this is all about the total. So I either am pawning between White Sox first 5 team total over, or just first 5 over. And you just kind of touched on why I guess I would lean first 5 total over, just because of how the the Red Sox bats have woken up, and how you just touched on that. But let's get into it. Let's break it all down. Let's talk it out and get the best answer here. So where I initially was going was White Sox versus lefties. It's been, I think well documented now for 5+ seasons, just crushing versus lefties. It's nothing new this year. 264 average versus lefties, 761 OPS. The only thing that's a little concerning for me, and I can attest to this, is the White Sox first 5 don't always score the most runs. I'll be the first one to tell you, if Lance Lynn isn't on the bump, I don't normally back this team in the first 5. That's another story for another day to get into there, but I'll tell you why. So White Sox on the year in the first 5 innings are averaging 1.88 runs through 5. Over the last 3, 1.33 runs through 5, and on the road 1.91. So anything below 2 is definitely tough. It's tough to stomach there at the major league level. That's why I think I do favor the total first 5, both teams total, just the over instead of a team side, because I want to get play on both here. I don't want to just rely on the White Sox to get after Rich Hill, which you already touched on for me there. 9 righties in the lineups, which they should have. I'm sorry, I'm flicking back over to my splits. There was a 277 versus the righties. It's going to be tough sledding for Rich. I know Rich first hand. I've seen him with the Dodgers. I've seen the blisters. I've seen him, all of it. Now he's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde as well. He started off the year. He gave up few too many walks, few too many runs. Then he went through a little streak there where he was all right. But if you look at those teams and the teams that were, the kind of the momentum they had going into those starts, he faced the Rays at a time when they just weren't scoring any runs. Baltimore, who wasn't scoring any runs, and this is pre-May, by the way, and then the Halos weren't scoring any runs for a minute there. If you recall, the first probably 6 weeks they weren't scoring runs. Then they turned it on to this hottest team since sliced bread, type of thing here. But if I look back to last 2 outings here for who am I talking about? So last 2 outings for Rich, 8 innings total, 7 earned runs, 13 hits, and a BABIP of 444. So he's starting to come back down to earth there. In his own ballpark, he's had 11 2/3 innings pitched, a 6.17 ERA. He's faced 51 total batters, 13 hits, 8 earned runs, and has a slash line of 277 average, 511 slug, and a WOBA of 369. I can't see how runs don't get scored tomorrow. I do believe the White Sox get the medicine they need in a lefty in Rich Hill, and I do think the bats get after Giolito. He's proven to be hit or miss in his own right. So I do believe it's first 5 over 4. Is that
so you might be able to get over 4 somewhere right now.
If it's 4.5,
it's 4.5, but it's plus 114 at FanDuel.
I'm loving plus money, baby. Ooh. Over 4.5. I easily see a 3-2 game here in the first 5 innings. That is, sorry. Yep. If you're giving me plus money, so while we're talking, what's the White Sox team total first 5? I'm sorry.
Well, 2.5. I haven't looked through different books yet, but at the offshore, it was 2.5 plus 105 or plus 110.
Then I definitely lean to the first 5, both total over 4.5.
Yep. JJ, what do you think, man?
Not much argument here. I mean, you've seen Hill slide the last couple starts. I mean, the first couple starts were rough. And then the last 2 here, I'm not sure what to take away from it so much. I mean, Hill, you have to look at who he's gone against. He's a lefty, got beat up by Texas. Seattle's a good hitting team. Here we are against White Sox team. Like Big said, good against lefties. A little sluggish this season overall, but still pretty potent there. he's Jekyll and Hyde. I don't have a real strong feeling on this for either side or total. I think the Chicago side is a little salty, little heavy, but I'm not sure. Of course, we're looking at a 10-0 game right now live for Boston over the White Sox.
Holy cow.
So, but that being said, tomorrow is a different day. Gio's just tough. He's tough. I a lot of respect for him. Power pitcher. He gives up home runs, but that's what happens when you're a power pitcher. You pitch up in the zone, don't get a lot of ground balls, a little spike and hard hit, but he's still got fantastic swing and miss stuff. Good strikeout guy. So definitely would lean, towards probably White Sox doing a little more of the heavy lifting in that first 5 against Rich Hill. So yeah, can't argue too much.
Awesome, man. Well, Pig, I think you make a good case, especially given the lines. Like 2.5 and only plus 110 for Chicago, especially when they haven't been as good offensively. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. So,
yeah, I would love to get some support from the Red Sox bats right now. I mean, like I said, I think at 3-2, and if it's the White Sox with 2, I'll still take 3 from the Red Sox. It's good enough.
Exactly.
So I just think
they're
there's
the hottest
more,
bats. They're the hottest bats right now.
I think
Sox.
there's value
Red
in
Sox,
that.
sorry.
Red Sox, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Well, let's move on to the last one here. JJ, you're going to bring us home. Rangers versus Angels.
Rangers, Angels, another pretty healthy home favorite there. But this one here again is about who's on the bump, who's starting the game, and I'm looking at the first 5 aspect as well. We talked just in the few minutes before we jumped on live, obviously that we had some similarities in how we're approaching some of these games. In this here, you're looking at these 2 starters, Glenn Otto. We'll just call him a 5 FIP type of guy, whether you're looking at XFIP or Sierra. So that's kind of the level he's at right now. And the reason why he plays with fire, 4 of 5 starts, he's 2 runs or fewer, but the walks are ridiculous. I mean, he's just got a 1.38 strikeout to walk ratio, which is tough. He's very hittable. He's vulnerable to homers. And here you have an Angels lineup that is as good as any that can capitalize on this weakness. If he's giving out free passes, they have some very talented and potent hitters, as we well know. You're looking at first 5 over 2.5, -105, not too hateful there on the Angels side going against Otto in Texas. If we talk about LA, they continue to produce at the plate. They got dealing with some injuries here and there, but I'm keeping an eye on the status of leadoff man Taylor Ward. He's sat with a little shoulder issue day to day, but the guy's slugging .713 as a leadoff man. So that's a key piece that may be missing again. Rendon's sat tonight, Tuesday, so he should be back tomorrow. Max Stassi, their catcher, is back behind the plate. That's a little more on the defensive end of thing, but he's a capable hitter as catcher. Now, on the other side, I also have to look at it as low-hanging fruit. Texas against a lefty. We talked about that a couple other times. Who some of these starters we featured earlier in the matchups had a tough time against Texas. Those were lefties. So Detmers is probably a little more vulnerable than it looks, especially being the rookie. He's going to have a hell of a career. He's deserves kind of that high expectations of him, and he goes out and pitches a no-hitter, complete game. So he's got that cachet, but at the same time, I think he's more vulnerable than that persona really, says. This squad has hit him up. They hit him up for 3 runs, 5 runs already this season. Those were in Texas. And this is in LA. There may be something, to this Texas team being a little better at home offensively, but they've already hit him up. The rookie has been pretty good at home, so that is something to be said. That's where he had that no. But we're talking about, again, he's a rookie, small sample size, if you want to say that. Not a whole lot of starts in his MLB career. This Rangers offense is biased towards lefties. As we said, 18% better. They're pointed in the right direction. Even though the bottom half of the lineup can be a little clunky at times, Detmers, when you boil it down, he's still a low to mid 4 FIP type of guy. Solid as a starter, but not, the caliber of some of the guys we were talking about there with the potential for, sub 4, mid 3s with Blackburn, Ray, those type of guys. Not what you're going to find with these 2. My numbers for the first 5 behind Texas came to about 2.25, 2.5. So they're hanging Texas over 1.5 on the first 5 line. You got to lay 130, but I like that. I put a small piece in there. I want to see how some of the other books open tomorrow on that. Also small on Angels first 5 over 2.5. That's minus 105 at DraftKings. I think it's still there. Again, I'm gonna see how things open up or look in the morning to add something. I don't particularly care for over 4.5 on the first 5 combined. I think over 4 is obviously much better. So we'll see if anything looks good in that tomorrow. But sort of that, I'll probably just add a little more to one or the other or both as far as the individual team first 5s.
JJ, how would you? I know that you don't have the book where you can do this, but both teams to score 2.
Yeah,
is it plus 160? Is that something you like?
I would rather do that than go over 4.5 combined.
Okay, just curious.
That's
for anybody. That's
both,
MGM. MGM's the only book I know of where you can get the both teams to score 1 or 2, and the both teams to score 1 is always a huge juice number, but both teams to score 2, you get plus money most of the time. You got to pick your spots for sure, but
this should be a good one. I think Texas gets to 2. Angels obviously because I bet them over 2.5 against small, but
right.
I think they get there. If anything, I think Texas probably has the stronger shot of getting to their team total. But at the same time, for both to get 2, I think that's pretty strong. I think that's a good pay, notwithstanding, what they're taking out on the other side. But yeah.
Yep. What numbers do you have on those totals right now?
Texas 1.5 at minus 130.
Okay.
I think that was both at DraftKings and Bovada.
Okay.
And then you got Angels over 2.5 minus 105. I think that's the same on both, or at least it was up to about an hour ago. I bet both at DraftKings, but I think they were the same.
Okay, awesome. All right, Pig, what do you think on this one, man?
I like what I just heard. I see another total to attack here. Personally, I like the first 5 total over. I believe we're at. Let's get to it here. Where we go there? Over 4.5, minus 120 on Bovada. JJ just really touched on it for me there. Otto has his own struggles versus righties, 279 average. You're going to see, I think, obviously, other than Ohtani, a pretty heavily right stacked lineup tomorrow there. Other thing that I like there was first time through the lineup, 297 average, 486 slug, and 399 WOBA for Otto. So against the LA Angel team right now that is number 1 in scoring in the first 5 innings. And then we flip on over to Reed Detmer. Reed, of course, we all can talk about the no-no, and I think that's what's going to get highlighted there. But, if you look at it on the year, he's give or take given up about 2.75 runs through 5 innings. I do think he's very still hittable. Let me get back over. This is probably of all the games, like I told you guys, I was a little least prepared for it, so I apologize for that. But I definitely still do like the Texas Rangers bats versus lefties as well. They see an uptick when they get to see a lefty on the bump. So I'm a little short on this side here as far as digging in. But first initial lean, I like that first 5 over 4.5. It looks like it's minus 105, did I say, or minus 120? I'm sorry.
You said
minus 120 is what Bovada is showing. I would definitely shop it around. I think you probably get a little better. I'm not going to touch 4 at minus 165. That's what's also kind of that's what's kind of pushing me to the half there. If they're putting a price of 165 at 4,
they don't want you to go there.
They don't want you to go there, and so I'll take that hook at minus 120.
Okay, cool. All right, not a ton for me to add here. Similar feelings. I think with Otto, one of the things I noted is that he's worse away from home. JJ kind of gave his base stat line, but 523 xFIP, 13.8 K rate, which is pretty low, 10.8 walk rate. away from home and a 217 BABIP for him. And then actually a question for you guys. This is one of those areas I can admit I'm still learning about baseball, even though I capped it last year and feel like I have a decent handle. But one of the things I noticed with Detmers is he has a .043 BABIP to lefties this year so far, 214 to righties, so a little higher. But last year his BABIP to each side were 385 and 314. And so when I see that, I wonder, like, is this just he's gotten pretty lucky so far? And he's due for some regression in terms of the balls that are put in play, or am I looking at that wrong?
Go ahead, JJ. I don't think that's wrong, but go ahead. By any means.
I don't think so.
I think so. That is sorry, I said go ahead now. I'm gonna start talking.
Go. Have at it.
No, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit there. I think you're never as good as you are, and you're never as bad as you are, and you're never as good as you are. So I think you definitely have to take both of those numbers that you're out there with a grain of salt. I would definitely steer towards the median there with Detmers. There's nothing that if you look at his pitch mix and if you look at Baseball Savant, there's nothing that he's just above average in, and it's just eye-opening in. So I wouldn't say as far as the last year's numbers, but definitely this year's ball is definitely playing into a little bit.
Right. That's a good point.
And if I look at it here, so he faced Houston, Texas, Baltimore, Cleveland. He's had, I'd say, an easier road a little bit this year. Baltimore, Cleveland wasn't hitting the ball too well. Boston started to wake up. He obviously threw the no against Tampa when they were having their troubles. I'm looking at Reed's numbers. There we go. Yeah. So I definitely would say, he's more towards the median than what you expect. And if you're expecting a no, you're definitely not going to see that.
No.
He's not that guy. He's not that top flight pitcher. So I would say definitely regression as far as what you've seen in the first 5-6 starts of the season.
So
and I was going to say, you're dead on with the fact that he's a lefty. We talk about these splits a lot, but teams and the way they compose these lineups and whether or not they have really strong hitters that hit both sides, that sort of thing. You look at who Tampa was that anomaly. Obviously to take care of business like that against a good hitting team. Homer Bailey had two complete games for the Reds against the Pirates back in the day. You know what I mean? But he was never, this massively successful pitcher. But again, we're talking about a young guy. The point being, he had very good outings against Cleveland and Baltimore, like you noted. Those teams are heavily skewed towards righties. They're the opposite. So he really had a strong advantage in that sense. Didn't pitch too many walks. I think just gave up one home run between those two guys. So, this is a situation where hopefully, because we're pretty invested in Texas at least getting a few runs off of them, that it's not so much of a Texas home road, Detmer's home road sort of thing as it is, that this lineup can hit lefties, and those that can hit lefties, have been able to get theirs off of them.
Let me just throw in one other thing then, like given you guys saying that with the BABIP thing, and this is a game at a time, so take it with a grain of salt. But anytime, like even if we take something that's more in the median, right? So last year it was like 350-ish. This year it's been maybe 150 or even a little below that on the whole. If you take anything that's in the 200s, so against Baltimore, it was 214, and he gave up 2 runs in 5 innings. 267 versus Boston, he gave up 3 runs in 4.2 innings. I guess those are only 2 in the 200s. There's a 545. We won't count that one against him. He gave up 3 runs when it was 143 against that was against Texas. So I guess all this just to say, I don't need to belabor it, but I'm with you guys. Like, I think that when there is regression, like when it has to come back to a median, you have to have a few bad games in order to get it back to that median kind of too. And so, even if we think it's going to be in the 200 somewhere. So I definitely like the over here. And I would actually look at the offer. You can get over 5 at plus 110. I don't mind that either. The more we've talked about it, the more I think both these teams actually have the potential to put up a pretty solid number of runs in the first 5. So I'll probably look at that, both teams to score 2 or more in the first 5 at plus 165. But then maybe over 5 at plus 110. So
just to kind of maybe throw in my 2 cents on BAPIP, just because, like I said, I think that's also something that kind of correlates with hard hit contact, just the volatility there. It's tough. I mean, of course, you don't want to see a high BAPIP. I mean, it's going to lead to bad things there. But definitely, I would look at BAPIP as kind of like a scale. I start to hate anything above 270. Anything above 270 BAPIP is something I start to worry about. And maybe even a little higher, only because of just the way baseball, the game has changed. I mean, the way the batters in the box aren't looking for ground balls. They're looking to put good swings, good swing of the lumber on the ball there to put it in play. So I think maybe 5 years ago, a solid BAPIP to look at 250, 260. I kind of bumped it up over the years, 270, 280. I still would classify as solid. And then anything below that, I would not fear at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where it's really tough to take away in a short-term period, because how many, when you watch baseball games and sometimes you just see, the pitcher isn't doing anything spectacular, but for whatever reason, the contact is weird. The contact's at guys, just getting them off, fouling them, maybe fouling out a few things like that really contributes to a much lower BABIP at times. It's tough. I think you really can draw some strong conclusions from, pitchers that maybe have 4 or 5 seasons or obviously more under their belt. You can start to see, with the Max Scherzers and things like that, they consistently have lower BABIPs than what you would think would be, okay, this is about normal. And they've earned that because of the talent they have and the approach they have to the game. And it's tough with younger pitchers. You look last season, and again, 20 innings, but you're talking 150 points to BABIP, lower this year with a little more innings. Yeah, I think you have to expect that to come back up to around 290, 300 at some point. But it's such a funny stat in the short term that it's tough to really
to piggyback that, JJ, Kevin Gossman has a BAPIP of 353 this year.
There you go, and look how good he is. But he's a power pitcher too. So
exactly,
so that's why a whole lot of balls in play.
Nope. Yeah. That's why I think it's so volatile, and I think JJ hit it on the head. You really got to kind of take it in runs there, in sample sizes, and kind of see. Of course, a larger sample size of a higher BAPIP, not going to be great, but I just wouldn't be so thrown off by a short sample size of BAPIP.
You're exactly right. That, and if you kind of start to look at other factors and trying to maybe explain why, and you look at Detmer, okay, this is a perfect example. Detmer's extremely low BABIP. You're expecting, some sort of regression or whatever, but he's also given up stronger contact. He doesn't have as good a swinging striker. It's well below 10%. That's a red flag. So you start to cobble those sorts of things together, and it's kind of like guys are making contact. He's not striking a lot of guys out. He's not getting a ton of swing and misses. He's putting the ball on the ground, which is usually a positive, depending on the caliber of your infield defense, especially. But you kind of look at some of those factors, and then you realize, that this XFIP and Sierra kind of mesh pretty well, and it's about at expectation. It's one of those things that I think you have to expect him to get hit and start to yield a little more runs if he's not going to be able to strike guys out. If he's going to continue to give up the hard hit, those balls are going to find empty spaces and not people.
I think this is why me and JJ get along so long. It said that perfectly. I would just always correlate it with the other advanced metrics. Always bring in the XFIP, always bring in the Sierra behind it. You'll see the correlation between the two. I mean, you're very rarely going to see a high XFIP and a low BAPIP. You're just very rarely going to see that.
Right.
So I definitely like the way you stated that. They're always just back up your advanced metrics with other advanced metrics. Don't just use non-advanced with that, because then you kind of just kind of skews it there. So I love that you said that.
Well, I've enjoyed this this episode of Baseball Handicapping 401. This is advanced level. No, truly, it's good stuff.
Good times, man.
I do appreciate this from you guys because again, I do think I've gotten to where I feel pretty comfortable, but these are the kind of things I'm still learning too. Because for me, one of the things I just look at in general, it's the same in NBA. If a guy in the first 3 weeks starts off shooting 58% from 3-point range, I'm going to go, he's not shooting 58% from 3-point range forever, So
Right.
you start looking at it to come back.
But
Or
at
vice
what
versa,
point?
so.
Yeah, what point do you want to catch the falling knife is the question.
Yeah, sure.
Speaking of that, Dallas, 62-47.5. Good thing I laid
Ooh.
nothing there.
They're ahead.
62-47 at halftime.
All of gambling Twitter is right so far, I
Jeez.
guess.
Yeah,
Ooh,
gambling Twitter is a bunch of geniuses today.
They are.
Yeah,
Good job,
we love it.
everybody.
They all can
Right.
start selling picks right now.
Oh, for sure.
Instant validation. Yep.
Well, guys, it's been fun. Appreciate you doing this. Why don't you, again, most people are going to know, but some people may not who are on here. So, Pig, why don't you let people know how to connect with you, what you're doing, all that.
Sure. So you guys catch me on Twitter at pig_vig. Try to put out at least a couple of free picks every throughout the week there. Of course, have the VIP section. If not, I'm there just to talk. If I'm not posting pics, I'm posting pictures of some ribs or something else.
Yeah, you are.
Hope you guys enjoy the page and hope you guys enjoy what I'm doing there. But yeah, that's me. Catch me at pig_vig.
Awesome. And JJ, for you.
I'm JJ from the BetCrushers. It's me and Yanni. We're at the BetCrushers and BetCrushers.com. Yeah, football season's on its way, but I'm loving baseball. It's been a good year so far. We're really enjoying it. I think this is these sorts of things, getting together, talking through things. I think we all kind of learn, so it's good.
It is. It's
fun. I didn't like seeing your NFC East standings for my Cowboys, but I fully respect it. The Eagles have made the right moves this offseason.
They have.
That's a whole nother
Not a fan of the Vikings at 9 wins either, by the way.
Well, you know what? We don't.
Maybe
you guys should lodge a complaint with Yanni, like that guy did on our last baseball stream.
I will do that.
That's who I got to send the complaint to. Okay.
Yeah, you got to do that. Yep.
So. Hey, I would appreciate guys. So doing this on the YouTube channel now, please do hit that like, subscribe. I'm hoping to keep getting these guys together on a semi-regular basis as much as we can to talk some baseball throughout the year. Also doing some UFC content now, something that I enjoy and almost had an awesome week last week, but I won't get into that right now. And definitely as we get back to football some and definitely NBA again. So like, subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Enjoyed the comments tonight, and everybody have a good night, and hopefully we'll go win these bets tomorrow.
Win them all.